For the first time since I started playing Soulsborne game, I got to revisit a game I already beat, and I have to say, the second time through one of these games is so much better, way more fun, and easier. Welcome back, Lassie Crew, to an unexpected bonus journal to my Dark Souls 3 adventure. So if you remember this journey I did about a year or two ago, I pledged to slay every boss in Dark Souls 3, and there was a little bit of a technicality at that time where I was focused more on the base game, and so I never slayed Midir and Sister Friede. At the time, I tried Sister Friede, and I made it to phase 3, and it was just very, I don't know, unpleasant. I was getting tired of the difficulty. I was struggling, and I just didn't want to put the time crunch I needed for that. As for Midir, I did try him once, and when I saw, someone told me that he was an HP wall, and at the time I really wanted to wrap up the pledge, so I didn't really bother. The original pledge was just defeating every boss, so me going into the DLC was already a bonus kind of journey for me, and I didn't really want to stay longer in Dark Souls 3. I wanted to move on to new things. So that's why I returned here for the 12 Trials of Heijie to go back and finish what I started. And I'm so glad I did, because these fights were great and I was able to appreciate them with the new mindset I have. Now that I've played since Bloodborne and Elden Ring, I can play these games a lot more comfortably. I understand the mechanics better, and I just got good. Here's the unfortunate part. When I went to go back to my original file to finish off those two bosses, I learned that Dark Souls 3 on Steam does not have cloud saves. And because I upgraded my computer earlier this year, that means where the original save file was got completely deleted. So I had to restart, much to my surprise, on stream. I had to restart Dark Souls 3, which it wasn't like an oh no, it was like a
oh no. Anyway, last week.
Now to get back to the point I was in the end game quickly, Mod Blue recommended I go full vigor. This is one of his cheese strats he does in all of his Soulsborne. We talk about on the podcast, where he says this is the easy mode to Dark Souls. You just pump vigor. So I took his advice. I pumped vigor all the way up to 40 before I leveled up any other stats, and I went with the strength build so I could just go and one-shot everything. I really have to say, if you're struggling with these games, I highly recommend this strategy. Pump your vigor up. It was the first time I tried it. Look at the size of my health bar at the beginning of the game. I could just go around and face tank everything. I was able to progress very comfortably. It was night and day experience. I got so familiar with the strength build, so the last time I did Dark Souls 3, I went with a dexterity build. This time I went full strength, and I thought I was going to switch in endgame to a dexterity build, but I was having so much fun with the hammer. I would start with the great axe, and I eventually went to Vord's hammer. I was enjoying the animation so much, like just how it plays, that I decided, you know what, I'm going to actually try Sister Friede and Midir with the hammer. And I ended up killing everything with the hammer, and it was very satisfying. And it's wild, because when I first played this with the twin dual blades, whatever they're called, I was like, I can't imagine ever playing this with strength, because the animation charge and everything is so slow. And I went in, and it was just like, I figured it out. Even with Midir, which I can't wait to share with you, my experience with Midir, the bonk of this hammer was absolutely satisfying. It was such a fun fight. But before I get into those boss fights, I just want to recount a few other things about my second playthrough. I went through it so much faster. I did it in 4 streams, which is 16 hours. I was able to beat the base game, including all the original bosses. They were so much easier. Like Vort, I got him on my first try, and he was so easy. I'm like, oh, he's coming at me, better roll out of the way. Like, I struggled so much with him in my first playthrough, and here everything was just a little bit more natural, and like, oh yeah, you dodge here, you dodge here. Another thing in the exploration part of the game, because I played these games, like all of the Soulsborne, in a condensed time frame, my memories of everything got like just started jamming things. Like Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 I did back to back. So when I was playing Dark Souls 3, I was like, wait, this is in this game? I thought it was in Bloodborne. What's in Bloodborne? So I kept getting these like triggers of memory of, oh, is this in this game or is this in another game? Everything was a lot easier. Like the Cursed Rotten Greatwood, for example, I didn't even get any of his like little minions to attack me, because I just knew you go for the crotch, you go between the legs, you hit the sack, and then you go into the pit. And I was so quick at doing that, none of his minions were really a bother to me. Whereas in my first playthrough, I was fighting the minions, I was smacking the balls, and like it was just a little bit of the two, and it was a lot more chaotic. Deacons of the Deep, same problem as the first one. I was watching my first playthrough and I died once there. Died the same way the second time to its stupid curse spell. The Abyss Watchers, super easy this time around. Last time it was one of my walls in my first playthrough. High Lord Walnir, so easy. I was like, oh, where are your bracelets at? Let me just bonk on those, because I didn't know that's what I had to do in the first game. The first time I played through. The second time I just like pretty much beelined right to his wristbands. The old Demon King, I was a lot more, he was just very comfy in terms of his mechanics. I could just read his tells a lot better, and I think that's the biggest difference between the two playthroughs, is I have learned to recognize the animation more, less panic roll, and just very comfortably like, we dodge this way, we dodge this way, now we attack. Like, I just see the timing so much better now that I've played more. Pontiff Sullivan, this one was another wall of mine in my first playthrough, and I have to say, I struggled on my second playthrough until someone told me, just face tank him. Use your hammer's ability to like stomp the ground where like I get a buff, and just keep like hitting him with the hammer. It's not a playstyle I'm used to just face tank, but that's how I progressed. Otherwise, I kept dying to Sullivan. So he was the one that probably gave me the most trouble in the base game bosses. After that, Yorm, I mean, he's got the gimmick with the sword. That was easy. Aldrich face tanked him as well. The Boreal Dancer, oh my goodness. This one here, you know, I can't face tank it, but I remember my strategy of hug the butt. And once again, it was very effective. But this time I could appreciate this fight so much more. The dance, the choreography, the like, okay, I got to step back. Now I can step in. Okay, 1, 2, 3, dodge. Like the timing, it just... It flowed so well, whereas in the first game I was like, oh bullshit, this and all that. Now it just works well. Like I embraced what the game is guiding me through, and it's a very pleasant experience. It's wild. The Dragon Slayer armor was really fun. Lothric princes were, again, I just had to remember the timing, the beat. I died maybe once or twice, and then once I got back into it, it was once again, okay, there's the attack, follow-up attack, and now my turn to attack. And it's a really cool dance. And you know, I talked about the dance a lot when Monster Hunter clicked with me. I think I finally like can really say the Soulsborne genre has clicked with me, because I could see so much more of the dances in every boss in ways I couldn't before. And it was really cool to experience. Even the Soul of Cinder, who was terrifying to me the first time, I once again just danced with him and came out the victor. So all of the bosses were just a lot easier just because I could read them. So anyways, let's get to the good stuff. Why we're here. Sister Friede and Midir. I think I talked about everything else that I want to talk about. So Sister Friede, this one here was interesting because I knew, or at least I remembered nothing about the fight, and so I had to relearn it all from scratch, and I had to relearn with the strength build, so I had to be a lot more. The thing with strength build is you can't spam, which maybe that's why I'm appreciating the fights more, because it's very much dodge, dodge, dodge until it's your turn to attack, and then you get one bonk. So with Sister Friede, she was getting me quite a few times at the beginning with her combos, because I just didn't know the timing and the tempo. And when she goes invisible, I didn't know that you could actually like seek her out and she's just sitting there in a pose and you can attack her. That was a big game changer when I realized, because I could see where she'd land, but I'd never go to attack. So once I started doing that, I could get more hits in. So then once that dance is good, phase 1 is pretty cozy. Phase 2 is where it gets a little tricky, because now you've got the big father with the fire pot, who's basically tanking, or you can keep going with Sister Friede while avoiding this like basically train of pain that's like going around with this soup. I tried the two ways. I tried focusing on the father at first. I died. I tried focusing on Sister Friede because I know she heals the father if you just focus on the father. Eventually, because of my build, I realized it was better to just focus on the father. Even if she's healing, while she's healing, she's not attacking me, and I can out damage her heals by just focusing on doing that damage. The second one was really, it's all about positioning. Phase 2 is all about positioning and just recognizing when you can actually get an opening, so you can't like really 1v1. You have to it's just like all the other 2v1 boss fights I've seen in the Soulsborne universe. It's managing position of the two bosses so that you are essentially 1v1ing while avoiding the attacks of the second one. Phase 3 is where it just gets a lot more intense. It's essentially phase 1 with a few other attacks. And it took me a few times to just figure out, oh, okay, these are the new attacks. This is the new timing. Otherwise, it's the same song and dance as the first phase. And once that clicked, boom, Sister Friede was done. And way better fight. I think it took me maybe an hour or so to fight her and defeat her. And it was a good fight. Like, I didn't feel stressed, or, well, maybe I felt stressed, but I was definitely stressed because I got the, what I call the, oh man, what do you call it when you get the shakies? I call it the shakies when you get the adrenaline rush and like you're shaking. Anyways, fast forward DLC 1, DLC 2 to Midir, because this was the last boss I took on, and wow, what a fun fight this was. So one of the problems I did in my first run is I was scared of him, so I stuck to his back legs or his tail. This time I knew I was supposed to stick to his head, and so I just like looked him on, stayed in front of him, learned his attacks. His tails are so big, he's like, I'm gonna swipe you, and then he swipes and swipes, and I had to, you learn how to dodge. And then after every one of his attacks, I get one chance to like bonk him on the head with the hammer. It felt very Monster Hunter-esque, and the whole thing just felt really good. Where it was getting tiring is because it's a long, drawn-out fight. It's not like the other Soulsborne game bosses that are done in about 2-3 minutes. This is an actually stretched out fight, very much like Monster Hunter. So my personal stamina was getting down, but I'm really happy that the last 20% for some reason like pretty much just disappears once you get to that point. You like do a massive amount of damage with the final hit. So that kind of saved me, because otherwise he's got, when you land in the pit, you pretty much don't move. He's going to do the crazy attack with like 4 or 5 different swings to it, and that makes him land pretty much right in front of you if you don't move. So I learned that. Thank you, internet. The ones with the fire, like when he breathes fire down, I basically learned to get away from that. I think that's the best way to do it. And then there's the rampage, which I just booked it out of there. I didn't even want to dance with him when he was rampage. Then the rest of the time is you just stay in front of him and you just keep, every time there's after an attack, you just hit him on the head, and then you keep dodging, hit him on the head, and rinse and repeat, and it was done. So afterwards, Moderator Blue did comment that there was one technicality, one boss that I still had to fight, which was the Half-Light Spear of the Church, which happens right before Gale. And the first playthrough, I fought the PvP fight, and it was a super easy, weird PvP fight. It was very disappointing. So everyone wanted me to fight the PvE version of the fight, which is also essentially just Sasuke. Like, this is a Sasuke cosplayer basically, and I did it. It wasn't anything too special. It was more of a technicality. Okay, I did it. And then because we had some time to kill, people wanted to see me go against Gale. And the first time I fought in my first playthrough, I absolutely loved that fight. It ended on a high for me. So I went back, but I didn't have the same mindset. Like, I didn't really want to keep playing at this point, but I went in out of curiosity and just to see what it would be like to fight him with a strength build. I made it to phase 3, and the mindset was so much different. Like, that fight, I remember it being very tense, me being really on edge when I did the first time in the first playthrough. This time I was just so much more chill of like, okay, yeah, we dodged this way, we hit it. And it just felt like really powerful. But in the end, in phase 3, I was making too many mistakes. I think my personal stamina was just down. It's not so much that it's like a ridiculously hard fight. It's just a fight that requires a lot of attention. It's a pretty long fight too with the build I have. And so I eventually just teamed up with another member of the community who had some kind of BS build that just melts his health. And that's how it ended. And so now I can properly say I have defeated every boss in Dark Souls 3, but I can also now say I'm understanding this game more, and I understand why people enjoy playing these games over and over, because once you beat it the first time is a very unique experience, and I really think that needs to be cherished. And I'm so glad, I got to share it with all of you, because after that, the game, the ins and outs, where the BS is, and there is no BS afterwards because you've gained the knowledge. And then I can see how it's a lot more comfortable to experiment, to say, I'm going to try this build. I'm going to try this build. Like, I can see it. And the fact that I was able to beat the game in 16 hours makes it so much more manageable. I think my first playthrough took me 30-40 hours because I just didn't know what to do. I kept running into walls, whereas now, once you get these games, it clicks so much better, which really makes me wonder what my experience will be with the next new FromSoft game. Like, I know we just got Elden Ring, so I'm not going to get to experience this for who knows how long, but like, well, I guess there's still Dark Souls 2 and Sekiro that I could test this on, but I really don't want to play Dark Souls 2. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts if you've recently made it to your second playthrough of any of these games, if you've experienced what I've experienced. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on Sister Friede and Midir. Did you enjoy these fights as much as I did? Let me know. And otherwise, I'll see you on the next video or the next stream. Until next time, keep it classy.